Good morning, everybody. I think we're all here, and I think we'll call the meeting to order. It is 9 a.m. And Becky, would you call the roll, please?
Sure will. Jim Sheeline.
Here.
Mike Book. Tom Kitson.
Present.
Larry Mimi.
Here.
Tim Bivens.
Here.
Nancy Nahler.
Present.
And it's nice to see everybody's smiling faces. We're a full committee this morning. So anyway, we'll go around the room. Wendy, I'll start with you. Do we have anything you'd like to talk about before we get started? I
Nothing.
know you're shocked that I started with you this morning.
Nothing other than what's on the agenda, Jim. Thank
All
you.
right, sounds good. Paul? All right, Sheriff?
Yes, we had an expenditure that was denied at the last claims meeting. Kevin Lally has been part of the 9-county coalition called the Northern Illinois Preparedness and Response Coalition. He's a member of the executive board. For him being on the board, putting forth the extra time and effort and headaches, they gave every member $6,000. That was last fiscal year. That money was deposited, what we were told, into an account, a grant revenue account that was available. So I guess my inquiry to Paul is exactly what journal entry was made and what account was that put into?
So I do recall this $6,000 check, and I know we've had some discussions on that. It was a check that was deposited into Sauk Valley Bank, and it went in through the EMA department under revenue. The check was actually the description said reimbursement, and the letter that came with it kind of discussed hey, thank you for allowing, I'll say Kevin, because Kevin's the guy that was doing it. Thank you for allowing him the time to work with us, and I know you're paying him, so this is a reimbursement for his payment. So basically what we did was we ran that in through the revenue line item. This would have been last year. And that value, if you will, is not an asset in the sense that it goes in through the income statement under revenue. At the end of the year, that all washes through or clears, the income statement clears to the fund balance account. So in other words, when you're done with the end of the year, your revenues and your expenses, if you have more expense than you have revenue, you're going to have a fund balance that is in a deficit balance. If you have more revenue than you do expenses, then you're going to have a fund balance that's in excess, and you'll have a fund balance available yet for future use. Unfortunately for the EMA department, that is running a deficit balance every year. So the $6,000 was more of a reimbursement to help reimburse that account, I'll say. So it's not there as an asset to be used at a later time. I don't know if that helps you or if that explains that.
It does not, because Chairman Copine from the Public Safety Committee inquired to your office about the whereabouts of this fund. We're just looking for transparency.
Sure.
We were also told the money was there and that Kevin had that at his disposal. So therefore, we went to purchase this trailer for use by the EMA. And I signed off on the requisition. There was a journal entry that someone from your office must have changed it from a revenue line item to an expense line item. And then it was passed off to the claims committee and then subsequently denied.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, and yes, Mr. Copine was in my office, and I told him, and if we had a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, I told him that was an expense from last year that's not there for this year. As far as that claim you're talking about, that claim was written such that it would have charged a revenue line instead of an expense line. In the accounting world, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that. So I moved that line that it was going to charge to from revenue to expense. You always want to show your expenses in an expense line. You want to show your revenue in a revenue line so that you can match the two up and understand what you have. You can't run expenses through revenue. So it sounds to me as if it's a miscommunication as to the understanding. No matter what, that revenue, even if there was a communication that it was still there, it wasn't. I'm just for clear transparencies, there was no revenue there to use for 2023 from a check from 2022.
So I think I want to interject here. The other issue is that even if it had, that money went into county general. So which EMA is a part of county general. So county general, once it hits county general, then it's of the purview of the finance committee. And it's subject to all the budget rules that the county has. So that's why I indicated to you, Clay, in the email, and I copied Kevin, is that it was an unauthorized expense because it hadn't been rolled through the finance committee. It wasn't a grant. It wasn't a discretionary fund. It would not have been, however you want to call it, an excess funds that could have been spent without discretion. That purchase needed to be, if that money even had been available, which it wasn't, it still would have had to come through the finance committee. The trailer was a non-budgeted item. I don't remember ever hearing anything about trailer. And all of a sudden, this invoice comes through claims committee. And I'm made aware of it. Paul calls me up and says, Jim, there's this invoice coming through his claims committee. Never been talked about before in finance committee. There's not a budget line item that can be charged to. What am I supposed to do, Clay? I can't have that. And so it got denied. And I told Paul not to cut the check. So when these things happen, whether there's a discrepancy in how the money is accounted for, it still has to come before the finance committee. It just can't just be spent. I mean, I wouldn't expect that from any department head.
Well, in one breath, we're told that it's at the end of the fiscal year, it was swept in the general fund. However, when we inquired about it, it was in this grant revenue line item. So I don't understand that accounting.
No, Clay, it had to be a miscommunication then because it was never there in 23.
Did somebody from your office tell my office that it was there?
That is a possibility.
Did
but
they
that-
tell Chairman Copine it was there?
No, because I talked to Chairman Copine. So did somebody in my office maybe miscommunicate to somebody in your office? Possibly, and I could say maybe even yes. But I'm telling you, it was not there. It's my responsibility, and I'm taking it, and I'm saying it wasn't there.
If we go back to the letter that came with that funds that were dispersed by Mercy Health. In that letter, I think if you read it in detail, it says it's to help subsidize the EMA department for the work they've put in serving on this executive committee. So sweeping it to general fund is probably against what the intent of the funds were.
I don't think so, Kevin, because your
Okay.
department was in deficit to begin with.
Okay.
So
always
it
has-
helped defray that.
It has been since day one in deficit. Because the grant, and that's probably not correct, true, because when I first started, the $25,000 from the state was about a wash for my department. Now it's not because it's 17 years later, the department's grown. So that has not grown. That grant from the state, the EMPG grant, has not grown. It's still at the same
Well,
level.
my understanding is it doesn't even exist now.
It's not true.
I checked with Paul. Paul's checked.
I haven't seen a payment from the state since June 23rd of 2022.
Okay.
So that's been well over a year. I looked through paperwork. The last one I could find was a 2019 grant funding year.
So as of right now, since we haven't received any money, we're financing EMA 100%. And that's a problem.
Okay.
And then.
It's a mandated department, so I mean, I don't think you have a choice, but you know.
Yeah, but we can't, just like anything else, we have to choose how to allocate a resources.
Sure, and I understand. And on the other side, I think I've sent all of you or most of you a list of my assets, which are now over $1 million. And that was not done through the county budget, as I'm sure you're fairly aware. So all those assets that I've gathered, you know, have been by donations or grants or other funding sources to support my office. So I would say that maybe, you know, a small portion of that has come from county budget, so.
And then I would pose a question is why should he put the extra effort forward, the extra headaches, if he's not going to be able to utilize these funds? There's no incentive, no motivation for him.
Tim, go ahead.
Who was the check made out to?
Lee County EMA.
Okay. And and you bought a trailer?
No, no.
Trent,
We canceled the trailer.
oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that?
I don't know if there'd be any fees, you know, because it was in process or not, so.
Okay, was that a budgeted, was that something that was in the budget?
No, that's like some of the other
Okay,
things.
So the intent was to use the money you received for the trailer?
For that 6,000 plus
Okay.
some out of my purchase of new equipment to purchase that trailer, yes.
Okay. Since we have a state's attorney here. Well, yeah, yes and no, but I mean, procedurally, is that appropriate, what they've just explained? Or should it have come through finance, or they've received the $6,000 check made out to Lee County EMA, and it was deposited in the county general. They wanted to buy a trailer with that, which they've since canceled. Was that the appropriate procedure on either side?
So just trying to catch up a little bit on what's actually happening here. When you get a $6,000 check to the Lee County EMA, that is going to be, I assume, not from the state for any type of reimbursement. I would say that it would go to the EMA's budget and be able to utilize in whatever shape that they need to utilize it in. I don't know what the source of funding was for. I don't know why they were getting the $6,000. I think Kevin and I may have talked about this a little bit the other day about a position that you got on a board, and that's where it was coming from.
It is. It's my seat on an executive board for 9 counties. And it's a mandated, coalition is a federally mandated agency by the feds that we meet and try to respond to events throughout the area, whatever your area be. They're throughout the state. We're one of probably 5.
Okay. So then it really comes down to the question of whether or not this is being used to reimburse the county for something? Is that way I understand it?
So, yeah, well, here, let me, I'm going to interject here. And again, I'm just going to say the check was made out to Lee County. Does Lee County EMA have its own EIN number? Are they their own standalone business? If they're not, this is Lee County money.
We got to be a little bit careful.
No, listen to me, Charlie.
I am.
No, it's Lee County money that if it was directed or had to be spent specifically for something, then it would have been, it would have been drawn that way. Here's what happens. It was put into the EMEA fund, and that fund is 305, but it basically covered a deficit that's already there and is still there on that fund.
That's going to be a question I have. Why do we think it's covering a deficit, though? Was there a letter that accompanied that said that this is to cover some type of deficit for the county?
It's not about, no, the letter just said this is a reimbursement for, well, as Kevin pointed out, it's for allowing him to sit on this board, right? And I'm assuming he sits on that board during work hours and in some respects. So we're paying him during those work hours. And
It
they're
seems we're speculating a little bit there because we don't know.
Okay, but either way, it goes into that fund. if there's not enough revenue to cover the expenses, and expenses, I mean payroll, benefits, gas, supplies, I mean, you would need a check for 90-some thousand to cover the deficit that's basically sitting there. So,
But it sounds like you're talking about a deficit for the county. You're not talking about something that he's
correct.
doing that he
And so
doesn't have
that-
to do in that position.
well, again, it's a county deficit and it's a county EIN number. It's all county money. We sit here and we try to think of this as, oh, I'm in my own silo and this is my money. It's not always that way. The only way it is if it was pure grant money specifically for a very specific expenditure. So we're still accounting for it correctly. We put it into the EMEA fund. That fund rolls into county general.
But that was not money that was going to be allocated unless he was going to be sitting on this board. Is that right?
Correct. Just as a side note, we've been working on this since last year, about last June, when this $6,000, June, July, when this $6,000 was issued. It was worked on with Sheriff Symington, with Chairman Sheeline, with Chairman Olson. And then when I found out it was in this line item, I figured they had made a decision, that I missed a meeting and didn't know it was there. So making an assumption that that money was there to spend in 305-029, 029 being my department.
That's actually what we were told from somebody from Paul's office, that it was in account number 305-029-490090, which is miscellaneous revenue grant line.
Absolutely true that that's where it was deposited. Absolutely true. Deposited in October of, a check from June 30th, deposited in October of 22. So you have, our fiscal year ends November 30th. That all gets swept into the fund balance, which, in accounting terms, your income statement, you clear out all your revenues, you clear out all your expenses. Your excess or deficit gets swept into a fund balance, and it's basically either, if it's a balance excess, it's an asset. If not, it's a deficit that has to be subsidized by county general.
If it was swept, say in December, then why, when we made an inquiry in October, that it was still in that line item?
It's just a misunderstanding.
I mean, and
It's not there.
the check is actually payable to Lee County EMA. Attention, Kevin Lally.
I mean, it's made out to Lee County. So, unless could Kevin take that check to a bank and cash it himself? No way.
No, it's made to EMA, correct.
So it's
all
Lee.
we're
So,
asking is that
so
he be able to utilize it.
well, no, you're asking me where the money was
I-
at. So
you know-
I'm telling you guys where it's, how it was deposited and what it was used, or how it was accounted for. Whether
Correct.
he
And
can
then
use it or not is not my decision. But
I received-
I'm just telling you, let's get off the fact that you may have been told something wrong. I'm telling you, it's not there anymore. It was last year. So now, even if it was there or in that fund balance, now, can you use it? That's not my decision.
Okay, so there's some issues as far as going back. I was made aware of this in October of last year. When Sheriff Simon said that he had this check that he's been holding for a period of time. My comment to John is that, number one, it shouldn't have been held, it should have been immediately deposited. Beyond that, there was not any real conversation. I was going to have a conversation with Kevin about the disposition of the $6,000 and how that could be used. We never had that conversation. Fiscal year ended. that clock came to a halt. We're in a new year. If there was a need for a trailer, it could have been put before the finance committee in a way that we normally handle capital purchases. And, you know, maybe we could have found the money for it. Committee would have made that determination. I think Paul has given us an accounting lesson. Thank you very much, Paul. But that is, I think he made it pretty clear. We're in a new fiscal year that we're coming to the end of. We've gone through budget. If you guys needed a trailer, why wasn't that budget request put in this year?
Because I didn't need the trailer until I got the water-filled Jersey barriers to move those and move other items, so. And I got donations to fill those, to purchase those Jersey barriers.
Okay. So how do you plan on moving those, Kevin? Besides, I mean, was the trailer always in the works?
No, it was, again, the trailer was less useful unless I had these barriers. Now it's very useful. So I didn't want to get a trailer. It's just going to sit there and do nothing. So until I got these people to buy these Jersey barriers for me, then I didn't need the trailer. So once that plan came to fruition, now I need the trailer, and that 6,000 being there made that happen.
All right, I think we need to have this further discussion as we come in and have our budget discussion. And I think the committee members, this is, let's move the discussion to our regular agenda, and we'll talk about that part in our budget wrap-up session. Is that all right, guys? Okay. All right, so Kevin, anything else you want to talk about before, other than this?
No, sir, that's it.
All right, thank you. Jeffrey, one comment I'd like to make to you, it really looks nice up front. The rails and the new steps of the building look super. Yeah, appreciate your team's work.
I would like to come back with one comment, Sergeant.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Recently, the Sheriff's Department was notified of 3 missing children, and the deputies responded very quickly. One went to the bridges on the Green River, started looking up and down the bridges. The second picked up the drone, went to a bridge and flew for 12 seconds and found 3 missing teenagers that were floating down the Green River. They were gone for over 3 hours, and in 12 seconds, one of the deputies found those. So that drone is very useful, very impactful. We would have had, it was getting night. We would have had to get fire department out there and start walking that river. Not that it's impossible, but start walking that river to try to find those 3 young men. The grandmother was very, very thankful that we found her kids. They were reunited, and she said she thought the Green River circled around and they would come back to where they started.
Okay, very good. Glad it's getting used. Good, that's great. Dean, good. Dean and Keen. Mike, Nancy, Patty, Sarah. Very good. Amy. Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to advise you that in September, members from Winnebago County, Judge Klein and myself went to Phoenix for the Court Technology Conference. It was a huge event. We went to a lot of classes, saw a lot of things. The big deal out there was artificial intelligence. So that was kind of interesting, but we were more along the lines of looking at vendors for our new case management system. We did get, a few ideas, and we attended a demonstration from Journal Technologies, which Winnebago was very interested in. We're very interested in, but we have to wait for a quote from them. So that was a very good time. On October 17th, next Tuesday, we are going to have a vendor called Goodens and Associates that come to the courthouse to give us a demonstration at noon. And that will be in Kevin's office. If anybody's interested in coming, please let me know. Lunch will be provided. So also I am down.
That's when, Amy?
That's next Tuesday, the 17th at noon. So if you want to come, please give me a heads up. Also in my office, we are currently down 2 full-time positions and 1 part-time. So I'm in the doing interviews now. It's kind of a long process. Not a lot of people are applying at this time. So we're doing what we can, but I'm getting some interviews in. So, and the last thing I had was Amy Percunier has worked at the circuit clerk's office for 25 years. So we will be honoring her. And that's all I've got. Any questions?
That's great. Any questions for Amy? All right. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
How does, do I dare ask, have we gotten any preliminary, do we know any preliminary numbers yet?
No, but we should soon.
Okay.
I have to reach out to Winnebago County. They might have given one to them that I don't have yet.
Yeah, and this presentation is going to be the same software vendor that the surrounding.
Yeah, about
in
80.
the circuit uses.
Yeah, 80 something counties in the state of Illinois have.
Super.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Stacy, how are you? Good morning.
I'm good, thank you. As I had mentioned previously, our union contract for the department expires at the end of November. Union negotiations started late summer and have wrapped up. We're just waiting for a couple signatures on that union contract, and then that will be resolved. That new contract will start December 1st of this year, and that'll be a 4-year contract. So we've got that taken care of. The Dependent Children's Care Fund continues to grow in a deficit, I guess. We had 3 minors that were detained this last month for various time periods. So just to keep that on your radar, because that was a little bit more than what we had anticipated for this year. And going forward, it's difficult to project what that expense might be on an annual basis. This year was a very big surprise as to where we are at on that. So that's difficult for me to always gauge. Usually we came in under or very close to that amount, but this year definitely was a different situation. If you haven't heard already, Lee County Drug Court was the recipient of a federal enhancement grant to the amount of $977,000. That's money that will be used for our drug court, its participants, and the services that we provide. We'll be working closely with Sinisippi and the courts to enhance those services and expedite services that we have for those individuals that are involved in that drug court. That's a 4-year grant. We were very excited to get that. Sarah Leisner did the majority of the legwork on that, writing that. She has also worked with us on other grants as well. Extremely beneficial and very knowledgeable in that grant writing process, and we're very fortunate to have her with the county. So that's where we are at.
Well, that is great news.
It's outstanding news.
Yes, it is, Stacy. That was great. I did hear about it previously, and I almost did a cartwheel. Not that I can do cartwils, but
When
it
you
was-
start
it was
doing those
wonderful.
cartwheels, Jim, you let us know because we want to see that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. All right, we have approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Naylor, seconded by Bivens. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Let's see, we've got, all right, the monthly financial report from Paul. What do you got for us this month?
So as you see in your packet, it's through September. It looks like everything is running somewhat smoothly. Our expenses are a little ahead of the curve in terms of what we're spending to budget. So the next 2 months, we'll need to watch that very carefully, make sure that, we're not overspent. Probably next month, we'll need to look at some budget adjustments for those that are going to be over budget. I'll work with our auditors to make sure we're doing that correctly. So, but beyond that, nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay, any questions from Paul? Hearing none, we'll move on to Insurance Committee report. Nancy, have you guys met?
No, Mr. Chair, we have a meeting scheduled in November.
Very good, thank you. Gredco, Mr. Mimini. Nothing, okay, very good, thank you. And ARPA quarterly report. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have your ARPA quarterly report there in your packet. Not a whole lot to update. Just a reminder that we must have all funds expended by December 31st, 2024, or we have to have them obligated to an expense and fully expended by December 31st, 2026. We had no new approved ARPA expenditures this quarter. As far as the fire department allocation, we still have one fire department outstanding that has not used their $10,000 award, and that is the Compton Fire Department. So if anybody has any connections there, any contacts there, I've reached out to them, but I haven't heard anything back, so I don't know if I have the correct contact information. But we'd love for them to be able to use that $10,000 award and get that line item wrapped up. Just an update as far as what funds we have left. We have $3,011,959.57 available for the Finance Committee to allocate for Lee County capital projects. And then if you look at the spreadsheet attached with the report, it's just an itemization of all ARPA expenditures. We still have some of those that are working on expending their award. So we still have claims coming in for various pieces to some of those awards. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Sarah? I think, depending on, we're depending on Jeff's department to get, and I'm sure he's working diligently on getting the ARPA funds, and of course, the bulk of that is dedicated for the improvements on the HVAC system across the street, and I'm sure we will meet that deadline, Sarah. If not, I'll be riding herd on Jeffrey, but I'm sure we'll get that done. So, all right, thank you. All right. Next is on unfinished business, the 2024 budget wrap-up discussion. You have in your packet, Paul has put that in the form that is required by the state, so it's in a little bit different format than what we look at when we look at the budget numbers. I guess, Paul, if you want to make any comments, and then we'll take any questions from the committee, and we'll continue the discussion that we had prior.
No, there's nothing unusual that we haven't already discussed. So I would say, we can open it up to the team. I don't have anything.
Okay. Anybody have any members have anything that they want to discuss? No? Any of the other board members out in the hinterlands like to make any comments, questions? Okay. So let's go back to what we were talking about before. I can tell you I didn't like sending out the email that I did, and I want Clay, I want your department to have the equipment that you need to be able to utilize. As far as the question of the EMA department, I do have a real concern in regards, Kevin, in regards to your budget. Our expectation, and of course, we have a $16 million budget that we're basically down to counting pennies. I hate to tell you that's where we're at, and for a variety of reasons, of which most of, Clay, you're very, very well aware of why we're doing that. So I'm going to be as finance chairman, I'm going to be very sensitive to off-budget requests. I'm going to be very sensitive in making sure that we do things procedurally correctly. And that's the way I'm going to chair this committee. So I hear your need. I've got a question. I was made aware that those barricades that you're talking about made their way up to Oregon. How'd they get up there?
Correct. We loaned them to Oregon. We loaned them to Amboy. We loaned them to Paw Paw for the parade. It saved, again, we're preventing vehicles from running over people. That's our goal.
Sure.
In Paw Paw, we used it to block intersections. It saved deputies being at every intersection for the parade. So that was the goal. Yes. And so we in this area, this 9-county coalition, work pretty closely. I'm going to Galena to assist with the Galena Halloween parade, where last year they had a guy, we found him after the parade a few days with 900 rounds of ammunition and some automatic weapons in his car. So it's prevention. My office is a one-man office. Most other offices in the 9-county area are one-man offices. Let me rephrase that. All others are one-man offices. We can't do it alone, so we partner. So we come together and we help each other. Good example, 2015. I know it's been almost 10 years ago, but Woodhaven tornado. I had people from Iowa, I had people from Wisconsin, and naturally Illinois helping me, recover from that tornado at Woodhaven. Can't do it alone. So we partner. So we loan each other equipment. We loan each other manpower. We loan each other expertise.
Okay. If we're able to load equipment back and forth, then why do we need to buy a trailer?
So it's sitting on the trailer ready to go. If the sheriff's department needs it for some investigation and they want to close a road, I've talked to Dave Anderson, told him they're available for him if he needs them, that he can come get them. It takes time to load these things. It's sure nice to have them available to be able to move immediately, hook up to a trailer, one guy instead of bringing 4 or 5 guys to load them on a trailer.
And all that makes perfect sense to me.
So they're not my barricades. Again, back to Paul's point, they're county barricades. So if the highway department wants to use them, the sheriff wants to use them, if maintenance wants to use them, anything I have, anybody can use. I'm just not going to hoard that stuff.
All right. My issue is not with the trailer. I wanted to hear your explanation of why you needed it.
Okay.
Okay. I've heard that. All right. Why wasn't this put in the budget request?
Because I didn't have the barricades before the budget request was completed.
Okay. So can you put that in next year's budget?
I probably can, yes, but I just, again, back to October of 2022, I thought that fund was still sitting there and available, and I thought that'd be a good use of a fund that was available instead of putting in another request and having now 12,000 in my budget instead of 6,000.
Okay. I think do you have any other questions on Paul's explanation of how that $6,000 was disposed of?
From the intent of the letter, I thought it was going directly to my department to use for enhancing my department from the letter from Mercy Health.
Okay. I understand that was your understanding. That's not.
And I think it was the intent of the letter also, and the intent of the chairman of the committee.
Okay. I guess I hear that's not I guess I'll go back to the explanation is that as that money got deposited in the discussion that I had with Sheriff Simonton at the time, I guess where the part of, and I'll take responsibility. I actually had intended to sit down and talk to you, Kevin, about the money. For whatever reason, we just never did sit down and have that conversation. Is there going to be another 6,000 forthcoming from this board, or?
Not with my resignation from that board.
Pardon me?
Not with my resignation from NIPARC, no.
Okay.
I see no benefit for me to, this is from yesterday's meeting. Workload can't be done in 8 hours and still manage my department. So it's at home. So I don't foresee that I'll remain on that board.
Okay. All right.
I guess I would hate to put Chairman Copine on the hot seat, but I guess, may I inquire as to what you were told from the treasurer's office?
I apologize, I didn't bring the 2 documents there. Paul ran through the information with me, excuse me, and did point out that the deposit of that check was made October 13th of 2022, and did provide a printout dated as August 31st of this year. for that specific line item of which there were no entries there at all. I didn't question it any further at that point, but I'm the one that brought this situation up for the $6,000 because if you remember last year, before Sheriff Simonton left after he retired, he made a suggestion on the $6,000 to split that $6,000. $3,000 would have been a stipend or stipend, however you want to pronounce it. The other $3,000 would go towards a line item to the budget, whether it was to purchase equipment or whatever it was for. I don't know that I want to go into a discussion as to why that was done. It was just decided at that point that maybe that a decision of that nature would be held off. I will definitely go back and check in minutes and everything to see what decision was made, how it was made, and why we're where we are today. My intention was simply to follow up on something from last year that has never had a final decision made on it, and it's turned into a turmoil such as where we're at right now. I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm just trying to figure out where and what the discussion was last year on $6,000 that kind of made a path there that nobody knew where it was until I was the one that stepped up and wanted to get a resolution to the discussion on splitting that $6,000. So that's why we're, excuse me, where we're at right now.
And to reiterate, you were told that in August of this year that it was still there.
No, in the document that I
You
received,
received the document.
line item was blank all the way across. There was nothing that was there. And that's what surprised me when the conversation came about that you were informed that it was there. So, you know, I didn't understand things at that point. But Paul gave me an explanation. I didn't go I'm not on a headhunting search. I want to know what the resolution was to Sheriff Simonton's suggestion at that point. And it turns up that the $6,000 ended up in general fund. We have an unfinished situation that was suggested back then. Are we going to finish it, or is it out of sight, out of mind? Is it done? What's going to happen? And I'm sorry that I waited this long to bring it up.
My attitude, Mike, to that question is that money was deposited. It went into the general fund. It was part of the money that helped defray the expenses of the EMA department, and that situation is resolved.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Sheehan, I disagree with you as far as the suggestion that was made. I don't remember a specific decision being made back at that point, but it raises more questions with me now. There was a request made some time ago as far as a line item expense for the EMA department. And if that's what the miscellaneous line item is for, so be it. Then we go to the $20,000 deficit. Have we had any communications with the director of EMA that there was an existing $20,000 deficit and that that's where this went? I would have thought that for transparency, had there been something there, and again, I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm just saying that if that would have been pointed out, perhaps we wouldn't have been where we're at right now with the purchase unfolding the way it was. Now, I don't have dates as to when the request was for an
So, Mike-
expenditure. I'm sorry.
Mike, I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry. I just want to answer your question that you just posed. Did I specifically point out to the EMA director that they had a deficit budget? No, I did not specifically say that. But I will say that there are department head reports available to every department head after every month as to where they're at on their budget. And every department head, I can't say every, most give me a shout at least once a month or maybe once every 2 months and say, hey, where am I at with my budget? And I can tell them, or they can go on to my Viewpoint and print that anytime, any day, night of the week, whatever. So I'm going to say, no, I did not specifically say, hey, you're over budget. You need to fix this. But that's not really my responsibility either. It is the department head's responsibility to run to their budget. So I just wanted to let you know what that was.
Okay.
Why, if you were specifically looking for somebody to call it out, I wouldn't do it.
So I guess that bears the question, is my department expected to run only on grants and not anything out of general fund? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, your department is set up as a 50-50, meaning 50% of it is grants, 50% of it is Lee County. But as of the last 16 to 18 months, it's 100% funded through the county. And even in the 22, the revenue we received from the state didn't even cover half of the expenses through that department. So that is the deficit that Mr. Copine's bringing up. It's there, it's available every month to see where you're at within the month. So I have to do that as even in, for treasurer in my department, I got to make sure, am I within my spending limits? Do I know what I have? It's out there. Those reports are available every month. But we haven't seen anything from the state since June of 22. And I did ask the former treasurer, did you as treasurer go to the state to ask for reimbursement? She said, no. The department head always gave their itemized expenses to the state, and the state reimbursed us. But I haven't seen that.
Okay.
So if you look at the budget that we're looking to present to the board next week, Kevin,
There's $56,000 in that budget line that is going to EMA to support EMA expenses.
Okay, and the 50-50 you speak of was original when I started in this office in 2006. As the expenses go up in 17 years, that grant did not follow. That grant is still the same $22,470 some dollars. It has not changed. So saying that that grant should be a 50-50 grant, the state has not changed that. Maybe that's something.
That's really not the point, Kevin. The
Okay,
point
we
is
were
that
just at
we're not getting
50-50.
any money from the state whatsoever.
I'll check into that. That's not a big deal.
We have to.
Yeah.
So, because right now, and we're not getting the money that we're expecting whatsoever in your department. And again, I'll go back again. We're counting every dime.
I will check into that as soon as I get back across the street.
Okay, appreciate that. And I was just made aware of that, as we were doing the final pieces. And because it was just something that I didn't happen to catch as we went through our monthlies and our quarterlies.
I mean, I just found it myself based on this conversation.
Yeah.
That we hadn't seen any revenue from the state. Again, maybe I should have been aware of it to push it out there, but.
And with that, with the new processes out there, I don't see the check. Check doesn't come to me. It goes to the treasurer.
Correct. He is absolutely correct.
So for
but
me
somebody
to-
has to ask for it, I believe.
I turn in quarterly reports, and
Yeah.
at the end of 5 quarters, we're on 5 quarters. State comes up with 5 quarters. Don't ask me how. So we're at 5 quarters now. I'm submitting 5 quarters this week.
Okay. Well, appreciate, but let us know when you get an answer back. Okay, with that said, is there a request, Clay, that within your capital budget requests that you want to have do you want to put the trailer into your capital request for this year?
yes, I would like to have the trailer, so that way they can be loaded and be deployable in a very timely fashion.
All right, we did have we had $5,000 that we had put in the budget for discretionary. You have a trailer that costs $7. I guess it's going to be, a discussion here with the committee. If we could, we do have the ability to amend the budget capital line item here. So I guess I will look for the committee and their direction.
I would say if we're going to do it, this is the time to do it, not in the middle of next budget year. As a need comes up, this would be the appropriate time if the 5,000, I don't know where the other 2,000 is going to come from, but.
Liram?
So, I know it's stupid, but where did the $6,000 go now? Is it in the general fund?
It was swept into the.
So we're saying we're using it through the back door then? Like, we
No,
put in the general fund and.
No,
It's over here.
I don't want you to think that, because that's not the way that works.
So it's not there?
No, that's,
Covered other expenses in his department.
yes.
Deficits.
All right. So we have to come up with $2,000.
We would, yes. Instead of, you'd we'd just be adding this item to the capital budget in Clay's department.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Kevin, where's this thing going to store? Where's it going to be stored at?
My normal home out at the airport. All my wheeled equipment is,
I mean,
except for
are we
two
like
other
running out of
trailers.
space out there, or are we?
Well, I can rearrange and stack stuff on top of one another and we'll figure it out. So there's plenty of space.
So it's inside storage.
It is, correct.
We don't in the future have to have another vehicle to pull this thing, or?
No, I mean, between highway maintenance, if Jeff will, my truck, we can move that trailer.
Well, I mean, if somebody's borrowing this thing, do they come get it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I would hope we don't have, I don't mind us loaning stuff and sharing, but I hate the idea that we spend all our time and money dragging stuff all over for everybody in the northern part of the state and other places, and we get no reimbursement from them.
Yeah,
I realize it's a share program, but there's, okay.
there's another issue here that really bothers me. And I know, Kevin, that it's great that you reach out and you get people to donate things and whatnot. But here's a prime example. Okay, you got the donations of the barricades. Now the county's got to come up with money to buy a trailer to make this stuff useful.
I hate to.
So what I'm saying is that you need to inform us as you get these donations so that we can plan and think about what the logistics of this stuff is. And I almost feel like the committee is being put into a box where it's saying, well, you got these barricades and they're not really useful unless we have this trailer. Well, we never talked about a trailer. And now it's all after the fact. And that's not the way I like to do business at all. Does not make me happy. I hear the need. I hear how this done. But this kind of stuff has to stop, because where does it end? Where does it end? And as we come into a budget where we're trying to control our expenses so that we can take care of employees, where does it end? And it has to be talked about ahead of time, and it has to be done in a logical manner. And that's not the way this worked. And
I would respectfully disagree. I believe the county board is strategic in their planning, where the department heads need to be tactical. As far as public safety is concerned, do we want a Highland Park? Do we want a Milwaukee, where people drive through barricades and run over spectators? We're trying to prevent that.
And I hear that, Clay, and I appreciate what you guys do, and you know that. But Lee County has X number of resources that we have to deploy, and we have to figure out what the priorities are. And that's the give and take. Anybody that's watching on this, they're probably wondering, why are we talking about only $7,000 on a $16 million budget? It's almost ridiculous. But the thing of it is that it's a bigger issue. It's all about how the county deploys its resources in that strategic manner, understanding the tactical needs of the departments. And I think you put that very well. And there's always going to be give and take on us. And I think this committee and the county board has done a very good job in the requests. It's just like what Kevin mentioned in regards that drone thing was an off-budget item. That was a mid-year deal. That wasn't talked about before because we had a wreck, we had a repair, we had to have a replacement. And the county, this committee and the board found its way to get that thing bought. But we can't do that all the time. We just can't. We have to have logical ways of when we acquire things. And when you get donations and there's ideas of here's an opportunity, and I'm going to refer back to you two other requests that I had from your department. The one was the trailer, the antenna, that was down in Florida. That sounded like a great opportunity. Maybe it was. Maybe it was a missed opportunity. But the thing of it is that it was not in your budget. Now, we've talked about having a discretionary fund in your area, Kevin, but I'm really, I was reluctant to begin with, and we're using that now. And I think the way this is all planned out, we're going to have an understanding of the things that you need and how that's going to affect your budget and how we're going to plan for those expenses. And I just don't think that I can, going forward, and we'll see what next year's budget looks like. But we'll have to have that discussion next year. But anyway.
So I just have a question on what you just said. So you want me to come to finance every month and report what I'm doing then, just like I did
So one thing, I'll tell you one thing that I'd like you to do. And because you've mentioned that you got this $1 million worth of stuff, I'd like to see a report of where that is, what it is, and where you have it stored and what's costing us.
Wendy, could you forward that to Jim? I just don't have access to it right now.
I've got your equipment list. I mean,
That's it.
that
That's
you
for you.
reported to the insurance committee.
Yes, that's it. And it shows where it's stored, where it came from, what grant.
No, I'm talking more than that.
Okay, I'm missing.
I'm talking about what your inventory is. And where is it? Because my understanding is there's things that you have that's not on that equipment list.
Can you give me an example? Because it's 5,000.
My understanding is that you have snowmobiles stored somewhere.
Nope,
Snowmobiles are gone.
don't have a snowmobile.
All right. Is there anything that you have on that equipment list? And I'm glad that we had this discussion because I was told a number of times that you've got old snowmobiles somewhere.
I wish, but nope.
Okay. Well, no, you don't want to wish that.
We do in a blizzard.
Yeah.
Well,
old ones.
Not old ones, correct.
Wow.
yes. All right. So I would like to see a total inventory list of the equipment and the supplies that you have and where they're stored.
Give me a dollar amount you want me to start at. Do you want $10? Do you want 50? That list that the insurance company has is 5,000 and over, and that was the trackables.
Let's say $1,000 and over.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have a list of what we're paying for storage for stuff? I know we've talked about a building.
I do have an account for storage.
Can we see that? I mean,
Zero. I'm not paying anybody for any storage anyplace.
okay.
The majority of the equipment is stored at the equipment that needs to be in a conditioned airspace is at the sheriff's office. I'm taking up half his garage out there. And then the stuff that questionably can be outdoors is at the airport. So-
Okay, thank you.
And that list, again, has locations of it, how it was obtained, the cost of, replacement cost of it.
Okay. Appreciate it. Because I'll tell you what happens, Kevin, is that as board members talk, and that's where I came up with the snowmobiles. And it could have been just simply, I should have, called you when I got told, but board members talk, oh, did you hear that we have this stuff stored here and that stuff stored here? And here I am, I'm finance chairman. It's not that I try to know everything, but I don't know what's going on. And as questions come, I need to be able to have some answers. So, all right, yes.
Yeah, I just want to speak. It sounds like this is maybe more than just about a trailer. It sounds like there's some deeper things here that need to be maybe addressed offline. Maybe there's been attempts at that, and then this forum is just being used as a voice for those types of things. I think the tension is, Kevin, that we think you do a great job, and the risk that we have as a county is that we take that for granted, that you feel slighted because we have to do a job as finance committee. We have to try to make these numbers work, I guess. Although we have zero idea how we're going to do that. We're looking at a good sized property tax increase that if we vote for it, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, on this. If we vote for it, we're going to be disliked by people in this community. If we don't vote for it, we go to referendum.
Sure.
This gets at a deeper issue. I can feel that you're going to, you come to us for requests or you feel like there was this money that you could have used for something, but all the while we're trying to run everything on a shoestring. And I assume you feel that that's being expected of you as well. And
Correct.
The risk that I think we have as a county is that we lose somebody like yourself who, by all accounts, puts in for every grant, does all of the things, does wonderful work, acquiring all the things that we could possibly need in an emergency. But as a finance committee, we sit here and we say, how can we possibly anticipate everything we could possibly need in an emergency and at what cost? And sit here and try to figure that out. And as you spend more time on it than we do. So like I said, I think it's appropriate that we just work closer together. You got to understand where we're at. We're going to try to understand where you're at. And we're going to try to not, and I don't know that this is a risk, but I could see it. We're going to try not to lose good people like yourself and Clay and all the people that try to do the work of this county, because it's hard when there's just no good answer. And that's what this last hour feels like. Mm-hmm. No good answer. So.
Well said. Mr. Bivens.
Well, I think for one thing, there's just a lot of, it's like the old movie Cool Hand Luke with a famous quote, what we have here is a failure to communicate.
Showing your age again, too.
I think that's what we're looking at. A lot of it is just a communication issue. And Kevin, you've taken the department and taken it a long way, because back when I was the director, I always hate to bring that stuff up, but the whole budget was $9,000. And there wasn't even enough money to get a grant. There was nothing. It was just had to have it. So that's the way it was. So I appreciate everything you've done. I also understand that, in the past years gone by, there was discretionary funds like in the sheriff's office, like commissary and drug DUI fund, that kind of things that you could use for the department. And they were at the sheriff's discretion at that time anyway. And so I can see where when you got the check, I can relate to that. I can understand your thinking. Now, on the other hand, probably should have come to the finance and said, hey, I need this equipment. Again, it's just a communication issue. I don't think anybody was trying to diss one side or the other, and it just kind of snowballed, and here we are. And hopefully we can resolve it. And the only other question I'd have is if the committee is willing, if they use the
was it discretionary or what was the fund, the 5,000?
Yeah, that was 5,000 that
So you
we
need
had in
seven-
the, and they need 7,100 to buy the trailer.
Is there anywhere in your budget, Clay, you can squeeze out $2,000 to round out the difference?
I'm sure I can
Means you're
find
trying to do something,
$2,000.
do without something else,
Yeah.
but I understand that, but okay, thank you.
I would also add, like, if you had to use 7,000 on a contingency of any kind, is this what you would use it on? Or is there other things that you say, you know what, I want to wait because I think we're going to have 7,000 in something else that I'm going to need worse than the trailer. I mean, is that relevant here?
I wish I had that crystal ball and I could look and say, oh no, I'll hold off on that because, you know, in January I'm going to need, but I don't. So it doesn't make the barricades useless, but it makes them timely to move and hard to move. So at this time, it's really, that's the next step to finish this project.
And that line item was basically for a contingency. Kevin has seen equipment on govdeals.com that usually have like a 10-day window to make the purchase, to bid. So he needs to have that money there and available to know that he can make that purchase up to that threshold. So he doesn't, with it being an online bidding, doesn't have the luxury of coming back to finance every month. He needs it timely.
If we buy the trailer, let me make clear, we buy the trailer, then that $5,000 contingency is not there. So this is, you're buying the trailer, there is no contingency. I mean, that's the trade-off. And we'll have to come back and talk about a contingency fund for EMA department next year. So you're using the money for the trailer. I want that to be really clear.
Yep, I think that's a necessary purchase of equipment, so that way we have it immediately deployable when needed.
Is that the desire of the committee? We haven't submitted the budget to we had a tentative agreement on the budget. I guess for cleanup purposes, I would require the committee make a motion and make this adjustment to the capital budget in regards to purchasing a trailer. The purchase price of the trailer, I think from what I heard, is that Clay is going to find $2,000 out of his currently budgeted items. And so this would be an adjustment of $5,000 or instead of a contingency line item for Kevin's department, it would be for the purchase of a trailer. Do I have a motion from what committee?
So moved.
Out of capital. So moved by Bivens, seconded by Book. Any further discussion?
Jim, I just want to be clear that this specific item was not on the agenda. So this is under the heading of your budget adjustment or reaffirming
Budget.
what the budget was.
Yes.
Yes, just want to be clear about that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Everybody understand what we're doing? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Jim,
Yes.
Kevin, you will check into this grant thing for your department?
As soon as I get back, I'll call Nicole Strayer with Springfield and see how the funds have been dispersed, who've received those.
Thank you, because that's huge to where we're at with the budget.
And
For some
they went
reason,
from quarterly, it's just an FYI for you, they went from quarterly disbursement to an annual disbursement. Annual disbursement now, again, I want to reiterate, is 5 quarters, not annually. So they're changing their program. They added a quarter to it. So we do 5 quarters to offset it, to get it back to a date that matches up with the federal government.
I have a question, Paul. When did you get the last disbursement of that?
June 23rd, 2022.
2022.
So 16, 18 months, 16 months ago,
16 months.
17, something like that. Yeah.
I was curious.
So that would be 5 quarters.
Yeah, it's 5 quarters.
right?
And you're submitting right now, you said, for the next one, correct?
Correct. I'm submitting a fifth quarter report this week
Thank you.
through Amplifund.
All right. Anything else?
I have one last question. Now that that's settled, I just have a process question. Wendy, you might know, through all this, I was not aware, I would like to be aware of if there is a threshold where any department can buy something without coming to the finance if it's not in their budget. I know I made that roundabout way. If something is not a budgeted item,
If it's not a budgeted item, it always has to, no matter what the
no
threshold
matter what the
is.
price is. Okay, I thought
Yeah.
maybe there was a
Yes.
cap. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, if someone has a budgeted line item of supplies and they thought they were going to buy paper, but they changed their mind and bought pens, they don't need, I want to be clear for the department head's sake here.
Yes, thank you.
You don't need to, but yeah, if you didn't, for something, like this, you didn't have it budgeted, yeah, always.
It always has to come.
So,
Okay,
and we
just
did take a
curious.
look at in the handbook for
The
department
procurement
heads.
policy, yeah.
It's also $10,000. So if you have, so a department head has a $50,000 budget, as Wendy said, and maybe they were, it's discretionary for them for a department head to spend up to $10,000 within a budget on a single item, then that does not have to come before the finance committee.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Let's move on to the levy ordinance, and this is what Michael had referred to. So is everybody up to the levy? And Wendy, do you want to
I will.
lead this discussion?
I thought Mike said it very well. This is under the heading of no good answer. So I want to start with just for everybody's sake, as a reminder, or for the individuals that are newer to this board, I want to start with a little bit of an explanation of PTEL, which stands for the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. Lee County went out to referendum on that some 30 years ago in the early 90s, and that referendum passed. And so since then, we have been under PTEL limitation as a county jurisdiction when it comes to the amount of property tax we can levy. And the way it works is relatively simple, despite the complex formula behind the scenes in the software. Essentially, what it is the law says the jurisdiction, the county in this case, can levy up to 5% or the consumer price index, whichever is lesser. And that's the limitation. There is a caveat to that says unless the jurisdiction had new property, we can levy against new property and go greater than that CPI or 5% threshold. So in your packet, just to give you an idea, because I do want to give a shout out to Allie Huss, new board member, who called me yesterday and kind of wanted to get some understanding of how all of this works. And it prompted me to think that perhaps it would be helpful for all of you to see what the CPI has been over the last 30 years and give you an idea of how unique the situation we're finding ourselves in right now is. So if you can find that document, you will see that, and I want you to refer to what I'm going to call the middle column, percentage of use for PTEL, because remember, it's the CPI or 5%, whichever is lesser. And if you scroll down that center column, everybody finding it? You might.
No, I don't have it.
Jim, I added it just early this morning, so you might have to refresh, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
So-
Thank you.
But Becky can put it up here on the screen, actually. So if you scroll down that center column, you will get an idea of what the limitation has looked like over the last 30 years. And I'm going to draw your attention to, even more recent times. When we had a 2014, the CPI was 0.8, so less than 1%. The following year, 0.7, again, less than 1%. The next year, 2.1, 2017, 2.1, 2018, 1.9, 2019, 2.3, 2020, 1.4, and now in 2021 and 2022, because of inflation, the CPI has been actually, if you look at the column of what the real CPI was, you're going to see that it was actually for 2021, CPI was at 7%. But again, thinking back to the PTEL law, it says CPI or 5%, whichever is lesser. So we're capped at 5% last year. And again, this year, CPI growth is 6.5%. But once again, Lee County, as a PTEL district, is capped at that 5% plus whatever new property or new construction that we have. This is a very important concept to understand and accept, because I know it's difficult for you all as board members, under the heading again of no good answer, for you to say to your constituents, what kind of property tax should we apply? But the fact is, in those other years from 2014 on up, we didn't have any other options. We don't have any options available to us under PTEL.
So Wendy, can you give the committee and board members, staff, so a non-PTEL county, and they have a budget growth of 8%, and the CPI is 6.09. Okay, what do they do?
They can levy up to their growth they want to. They could levy beyond their growth. They could levy 10% if they wanted to. The only restriction for non-PTEL counties are that there is a truth in taxation law, which requires them to have a truth in taxation hearing. Anything 5% or greater requires a truth in taxation hearing. And that actually applies to PTEL and non-PTEL jurisdictions. So a lot of the conversation and focus for you this year has been on the FOP negotiations, quite frankly. So you're going to see when I get into it here and actually present to you my proposed or recommended levy request, that at the 6.2 that I believe would be prudent to request, that's going to get us just slightly less than $500,000 in additional revenue from property tax. You all know that, because it's been talked about, that the last offer of the board to the FOP was $500,000 in growth for those salaries. And there's a good reason behind that. I don't want anybody to panic. We are trying to get competitive with jurisdictions adjacent to us and stop the flow of our employees going to other jurisdictions. So the negotiating committee took it quite serious, took their responsibility quite serious. But if, and by the way, that's not settled. So we're moving to mediation, potentially arbitration. So that's still up in the air. If you were to adopt my recommended levy, it would not even cover where we're at right now with the FOP, let alone every other department. And by the way, most departments have remained flat. The only exceptions to that, for the most part, are the increases in salaries that have already been approved by this board in a prior year. Other than that, we've remained pretty flat. So this is under the heading of no good answer, because I know you all don't want to do this. But as a PTEL jurisdiction, we are very limited. And we cannot say, you know what, next year we made a mistake, let's go back and capture that new growth. Can't do it. We can only capture it in the year that it exists as new property, or in the year that we are giving a 5% CPI cap.
Well, and I'll go even beyond that, Wendy, because as a finance committee, we also have to, you talk about crystal ball, Kevin. The committee has to look at what, not only in the current year, but also we need to be thinking about the anticipated growth of the budget next year and the year after, in regards to any of the union contracts, and also any known, we can't know the unknown, obviously, but we do have known expenses through the capital budget and the projections that we have. We know what capital needs we're going to have in the next couple, 3 years. And some of my comments might sound and things that I've written sounds really harsh. And it's because we're tasked with, because the decisions we make now can make a huge impact on because we don't know what next year's CPI is going to be. We don't know what next year's PTEL limitation is going to be. So we have to anticipate that of growth, of committing growth to the budget in future years. So.
Yeah, so with that said, in your packet is my proposed levy request. The other thing I want to remind you about is at this point in the year, the assessor's office is still finalizing assessments. So I have projected the new construction. And if I'm wrong, and I'm short, for example, we won't get what we're asking for here. Everybody needs to be clear of that. The only thing at this point that we can be guaranteed of if you support going with the 5% is the 5%. Everything above that is still just a guesstimate at this point. But based on my knowledge of what new property is out there, I have estimated that we can get the 5% plus. You're going to see I've increased the levy to 6.09%. So last year we requested from property tax for revenue $8,256,649. I'm going to remind you that $8 million number is half of the $16 million budget that Jim has been referring to here today, because we do get revenue from other sources, of course. This year, what I am projecting and requesting in my proposed levy request is $8,759,500. That is a percentage of change of the levy itself of 6.09%. Now, I want to be clear. Because of the PTEL calculation and formula, that does not translate into a 6.09% increase to property tax bills. First of all, because our portion of the property tax bill is only 10%. But second of all, the limiting formula for PTEL will limit the rate. So if you look at the next two columns I've presented there, and while I didn't give you a percentage, the rate for the last year, for the current fiscal year we're in, was 0.8563. With my projections, the rate would go to 0.8984, which is actually a rate increase of about 4.91%. Because again, the PTEL formula is in there capping where we can go. So the rate increase is about 4.91%. The levy, the dollars that I'm projecting or proposing to request, is up about 6.09%. And again, I'm going to remind you, there's no guarantees here. This is just my best guesstimate of where we'll be at with new property. With that said, I will throw it out to any comments or questions.
Comments, questions from the committee?
I will just add one other thing. In the file, in the documents, you will see that projected total levy request of 8.8 million is divided up by various funds, and you can see those in your list. So what's capped is the bottom line. If you add or take away any of those funds, then there is an immediate impact on one of the other line items there, because the bottom line is what's capped.
Bliram, do you have a question?
Yeah. So if we do not do the 4.9%, what would that levy be?
If you wanted to do
without the raise.
You wanted to just do the 5%, or you wanted to do no raise?
No raise, for example.
What would the rate be if there were no raise?
Yeah, what would the raise be? Like the increase, yeah.
Well, if you didn't raise your levy, your request for funding, it wouldn't change.
So it'd still be 8,256,000?
Correct. It would be 8,256,000.
I guess I also want to point out, Wendy made a pretty good statement when she says this is half of a $16 million budget. I guess where I want to point out is the state is our other revenue resource, state income tax, PPRT, sales tax, things like that are our other source of income. The state has already informed us that 1/3 of that PPRT will go away this year. And that, what PPRT in and of itself, was probably 20% of our 16 million from last year. So if you drop that by a third, which was around 2 million some dollars, right? You're going to drop down to 1 million or 1.5 or whatever it is. So and then sales tax and that kind of item, income tax, if we go into a recession, will also go down. I guess what I just want to point out to the committee and the members, the board members, as Wendy eloquently put it, this is a no-win situation. You don't really have a choice. I mean, I hate to bluntly put it that way, but without any income increase, with, we're also seeing the effects of the inflation. I mean, just our paper cost, our gas cost, anything is increasing. You can't idly stand by and do nothing. Sorry, just want to interject that.
And I agree with you. I agree with everything. I'm in business. I know everything goes up, but that's a hard answer when you ask a person that's on fixed income and tell them that, because we're calling it a levy, politically correct.
Yeah.
Their taxes are going to go up.
Well,
so what do I tell them as their representative on this board?
If they're truly on a fixed income, I'm just going to give you this.
Mm-hmm.
A fixed income to me would be something in the, something of very small. If they're under 65,000 a year, they need to be going to the assessor's office and have their assessment frozen if they're seniors. If they're seniors, they need to have that done. If they're not, I mean, unfortunately, they're seeing this cost everywhere as well, right? We're only guaranteed death and taxes, And I think she's got it pointed up here, a median income or a medium house value. Her proposal would be of $135,000 house. It's going to increase your property tax by $18. So again, we have to find spots. Our community needs to find those spots as well. I agree with you guys. I mean, it's a tough,
That's all I'm saying.
It's a tough sell, right?
Things go up.
But without it, we don't have a county to run either. So you know what I mean?
Well, maybe we ought to start thinking about some cuts then, because nobody wants to hear that word.
That's
we have to do something.
That's a discussion you guys have to
all
have.
we're doing
Correct.
Yeah, everything goes up. Let's raise the prices, raise the taxes.
I would only caution, and I'm going to say this, for anybody on the board that says, well, let's just cut. Okay, where? And then if you come up with someplace, I would ask, have any of you sat in any of those departments, any of these guys' departments, my department, to see what goes on and know, oh, well, there's a place you could cut. I haven't seen anybody in my department. I mean, that would actually come down and understand that. And I hate to be that harsh, Laram, I'm not picking on you. You have. It's a reality. You're the management team in essence. And I want you to be informed is my point, is if you had to do that, do you understand where you'd have to do it from? Have you made the effort to know where you could do it?
And also, and the reason why I commented about you have to look beyond the single year. You have to look at what's ahead. And when you look at our situation in the county, we've got huge challenges. I mean, we have physical plants. Not only do we have employees to take care of, we have physical plants to take care of. And Jeff would regale us with the stories of what our costs are coming up, and we think we have a fairly good handle on that, but every year that goes by, those costs of getting those physical plants up to where they need to be go up, and so it's a challenge. So nobody likes to see our taxes raised. I absolutely despise and I appreciate Wendy doing it, but at the same time, I always despise this is only going to cost a median household, $20 or $18. Well, the thing of it is, we're one. And there's the elephant in the property tax room is the school districts, and they are going after every dime that they can. And so as ours go, we're actually a small part of the increase, unfortunately. So it's a challenge.
Hey, Jim, I think Ally has a question. She's got her hand up.
Oh, Ally, go ahead. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the question. Go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for allowing me to talk and be a part of this. Full disclosure, as everybody is aware, yes, I am new to sitting on the board and being a part of the finance, listening in as you guys move through this. One thing, to the point of you don't have a choice, I think just like off the bat, there's always a choice. So yes, the alternative to raising is decreasing in other areas. The argument that has the finance committee specifically come to each department, I think my question would be, has each department come to the finance committee and down to the last detail of staples justified that this is absolutely essential to county function? If that's taken place and everybody can walk away saying we've done that, we feel good about this, okay, there's another argument and question answered. Apart from that, no, there are always choices and decisions that have to be made. You mentioned the assessor's office, and I just want to be clear that everybody understands the message that's going to be taken back to all of your constituents is not just that we are increasing the levy again this year as we did last year. The message is also your property appraisal is going to drastically increase. We heard that in community service meeting, right? We heard that based on the market, everything is increasing. And we sit here and we say, well, it's all increasing because of inflation. Well, you need to remember that your constituents are also feeling all of these same expenses. So can we sit there with good conscience and say, yes, we absolutely have to have these same increases, these same budget items to move forward to provide and protect for the county? At the end of the day, if those questions are yes and the board agrees, then the levy gets passed. I just don't know if all of those questions are completely answered. And I understand, I'm coming in late, the budget's already well underway, but the message to the constituents also, if we can do 5% next year, we're going to do it too. That's a message that they should know, because this isn't stopping. We haven't controlled spend. The line items are still going to be there. We are still going to have areas where we're going to need to raise it on. So full disclosure, the constituents need to understand we did it last year. We're doing it this year. We intend to do it every year that we possibly can, if that's the message that we're sending and voting to approve this levy.
Hey, Jim, may I address? So Ally, this is Wendy. We had a great conversation yesterday, but I ended up with an appointment that came in and we got cut off just about the time we were starting to delve into PTEL. So Ally, I want to address your comments about the assessed value and the assessor's report about property values going up. So the way PTEL works, and it seems counterintuitive, but the way PTEL works, that literally the assessor could double everyone's assessed value in the county, and it would not generate any more revenue for PTEL jurisdictions. That was the whole point behind PTEL, in that it caps it at that whatever the CPI is, plus new construction. So what happens in the mathematical formula, Ally, is that while assessments may be going up, the rate will go down to not cause a double whammy by assessed value increase plus rate increase.
So what happens next year?
Pardon?
What happens next year?
Same thing. We're going to be under PTEL next year. So even if values go up, literally, I could show you the math, and sometime we probably should talk about this, Ally,
okay,
but I could show you the math.
The value from the assessment of this year will have an impact on them in the next coming year.
So let me, because the piece that you're missing, Ally, is that there are taxing jurisdictions, the biggest taxing jurisdictions, with the exception of two school districts within the county, and that's Amboy and Nelson. The other school districts that operate in Lee County they have jurisdiction that's outside of the county. So therefore, they are not subject to PTEL restrictions. So Dixon Public Schools, Franklin Grove, Ashton School District, Paw Paw, Mendota that has a piece down of Lee County down, and the only those jurisdictions are not subject to PTEL. So they would be able to capture both the increase in the assessment increases. So the only the jurisdictions that are subject to PTEL have the restrictions that Wendy's talking about. I just wanted to make sure you understood that part of it as well.
Right. And you have a lot of people have constituents that will be impacted by both of it. A lot of people have constituents outside of solely PTEL entities or jurisdictions.
Yes.
So they will be impacted. And the assessed value, my point here is it may not be reflected in the 2024, but look forward to 2025, 2026. Yes, it's going to be part of the calculation that's there. And we know that if we are allowed on the CPI to do 5% again next year.
So I had two head shakers on that comment, Allie, just so you know. And Wendy, do you want to tackle that?
So Allie, again, I'd love to sit down and show you the math behind the scenes here, but that was the point of PTEL, is it that in no year will increased assessed values translate automatically into increased taxes for citizens. The way the formula is set up is, in fact, to cap it at whatever that consumer price index is. So it seems counterintuitive. I know that because that's not the way it is in non-PTEL jurisdictions. But in PTEL jurisdictions, it absolutely will not result in a double whammy of higher assessed values and higher levy requests. It mathematically will not happen that way.
I understand it's not going to happen in the same year, but I think maybe it's like a miscommunication here because the assessed value of 24 is going to still have an impact. It may not have an impact at the same year as the levy is taking place, but it is going to negatively impact the constituents. Is in the way of their pocketbook. And in the way of the services provided and the county's ability to perform, I mean, that's a decision that's what the budget is for, right? What does the county need? What do the constituents need from the county?
Yeah. So you had a question right at the beginning, Allie, of your questions as far as, does the department heads come in and justify and do we go line by line? Yes. How the process works is that the budget requests for the department heads go out the end of June, which asks the department heads to put in their requests for the next fiscal year. That's collected in July, and then the Finance Committee starts their budget hearings the end of July into August, and we go through in our process, we've kind of made the decision that if there is not any big items in a particular department or their department's been held relatively flat, then they don't have to come in to go line by line. We spend the time of going through the budget requests of the departments that have increases in their overall spending areas. And then we do go through that and we ask the department heads to justify those dollars and those expenditures. And then that's put in, that's put in the overall budget plan when all those requests are put together. And then the Finance Committee, this year, Wendy and Paul and I, we had a budget negative of $850,000. And we presented a balanced budget to the committee, and we've kind of been the wrangling that you've been hearing last month, this month has been trying to get the end result that's going to get presented to the county board next week. And that's where we're at with the process. The levy is that levy number that you have is baked into the overall budget ordinance and budget requests. So when you contemplate talking about the levy, what actually happens is that you're hitting one piece that we would have to go back. Let's say you reduce the levy. Well, if you're not going to levy for a particular, for less money, as Laram had mentioned in regards to the not levying for the increase of 6%. We have to go back and look at where we can take that money out of the current year budget.
As you've stated, you guys have done that. And so does the finance board feel like there is anywhere that they could do that at, going back?
I'm going to let Mike go ahead.
Allie, I'll just say this. It's a lot of trailers.
Yep. Yeah, everything adds up. Yep, absolutely. It does.
So I think the one thing I think I can assure you, and I've said this in the past, we have a group of department heads that I think are very sensitive and do a very good job in understanding that we have limited resources. We're still going to have disagreements on how to deploy the resources that the county has. As you heard this morning, but overall, I compliment all of our department heads in regards to how they hold the line on spending. So, Mr. Bivens.
Thank you. There is something worse than raising taxes. It's really grinds on people, and that's wasteful spending of our tax dollars. Having been in Springfield for almost 11 years, the process down there is they give you a budget an hour and a half before you're supposed to vote on it, and it's about 2,000 pages. And one of the last budgets that I voted against, because I voted against every one of them because they all violated the state constitution, which requires a balanced budget. The last budget before I left was $36 billion. Now, the problem with that was they only had $33 billion in revenue. And they continue to create new programs every year, and it's very wasteful. And then you go on the federal level and you see all the pork barrel spending that goes on and all these crazy programs. Now, I said all that to say this, that this county process that we have is actually a very good process. It's a very transparent process. Our department heads and our elected officials, there's not a lot of fluff in their budgets. They do a very good job with their budgets. And what we do is we provide service. And at some point in time, you have to pay for that service. And we're at that point in time with the sheriff's department. We have people who don't want to go into law enforcement. It's been vilified so badly that you can hardly get applicants, and it's costing us a great deal of money. And as we lose people, that costs us money through training and rehiring and overtime. And so it's catch-22. And I know I'll use somebody else's comment. They said, hey, I want to raise, but I don't want you to raise my taxes. Well, that's not reality. That's not how it works. And I've never voted for a tax increase in Springfield. And I voted last year against this levy. But we're at a point in time where I don't really want to pay more taxes. Nobody in this room wants to pay more taxes. But I think the department heads and the elected officials have done a good job. And this process is far and away better than the state, better than the federal. And I think it works very well. But we do have to pay the bills. We do have to provide the services. And that's where we're at.
Okay. I know, and Ally, really appreciate your participation this morning, really appreciate the questions. And as new board members, you have, I look at it as an obligation to ask questions. So really appreciate, your questions this morning. However, we are coming down to the wire in regards to our time. So I'm going to ask, we need to have a motion to move the levy ordinance to executive. I have a motion by Bivens, seconded by Kitson. I caught you last time, Nancy. Yeah. Is there any further discussion in regards to the levy ordinance? Any board member wants to comment in regards to the levy ordinance? Okay. Any staff? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving the levy ordinance to executives signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. All right, next is the fiscal year 2024 budget ordinance. You have that in front of you on your packet, and Paul has that, and Paul and Wendy have that in its proper form. The caveat will be is that the adjustment that we made in regards to the trailer will be in the final product that we passed. So that would be the only correction from here on that I would note. So I would entertain a motion to pass the budget ordinance onto executive, moved by Kitson, seconded by Naylor. Any further discussion in regards to this year's budget? Any other board members? Staff? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing the motion, passing this along to executive signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I don't have any need of an executive session at this time. So I'll entertain if there's any other, before we go adjourn, I'll look for Wendy or Paul. Is there anything else I missed?
Nothing.
Need to get done?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
All right. Entertain motion to adjourn. Moved by Kitson, seconded by Bivens. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in the discussion.